Now the S&P 500 is up. It was before today. Dow Jones basically flat, and you had the NASDAQ down 0.5%. But if you look, what surprised me is the Russell. What do you think the Russell's doing?
I would assume it's still down just because of the pain and
it's down a lot.
Pain and small
it's down
caps.
a lot. It's down 6.3%, and you have mid caps down almost 3%. So you're not seeing this follow through from a lot of these stocks. And I got to tell you, you mentioned biotech yesterday, right? And talked about how many companies are trading, below cash. Their market caps are trading, have more cash on the balance sheets than do with the market caps. And it's incredible because when I'm looking at small caps, there's such a big disconnect there that we're starting to really see it and be able to pick off some of these names. If you're looking at biotech, you're looking at energy, especially within the oil industry. There's a lot of very smart, brilliant people that are doing roll-ups in a lot of these industries because they've been annihilated, and you want to buy these assets when they're dirt cheap and people are giving them away, and you're basically buying the cash for free in the balance sheet. You're getting these technologies. I think you're going to see a massive M&A wave take place in biotech, especially with new laws around, going on within healthcare and vaccines. And again, these companies have a profit, right? They have to continue to make money. That's their job. They don't want to cure anything. They want to treat everything. We all know the system. But now you're sitting there with biotechs with amazing technology that is still down 70, 80%, probably the worst 5, 6, 7 year stretch that you've seen in biotech. I don't want to say ever because, it might be historians that say, well, remember this time and that time, 20, 30 years ago. But I could tell you, doing this for 30 years, man, holy shit. I mean, this sector's been annihilated. And one of the funds that we're in through Curzio, one is they're investing in these super early stage incubator companies where, they get to pick the best of the best, and then they'll come in and get a person on the board and fund them and go through the process. And now you're getting in these things at 25, 50 million valuations in a private market, and now they're raising money at 100, 200 million. That's one of the ways to do it. If you're a credit investor, you can do it through certain funds, and you have access to really smart people in that world, through private placements and stuff. But holy shit, it's just this total annihilation of some of these sectors, especially within small caps.
Man, was it 30% of small caps were not profitable as of, and that's not crazy.
That was last. That was about 12 months ago, 18 months ago.
You think with interest rates and all that. I mean, definitely small caps take absolutely the brunt of higher interest rates, higher for longer, sluggish fears over the economy and all that kind of stuff, which makes investing fun and clear as mud, because you would think that the guys that get all their profits from right here and are quote unquote a little bit buffered from tariffs would get a bounce, and that's not the way it works out sometimes.
And that's the thing with small caps, Daniel, too, is because high interest rates have been here for well over a year, 18 months now, right? So they position themselves, they got wrecked, they got annihilated. Then you're looking at, tariffs for some of them, but a lot of them mostly have U.S. exposure, many of them. A lot of these companies realize that the business model isn't grow at any cost without profits, because now you want to see profits. So a lot of these companies have cut costs where they're becoming profitable. So the risk that push these things down, it's a different market, higher interest rate. These companies have adapted where if interest rates we're going to hint pretty soon that interest rates are going to come down. They're going to need to come down because we're going to see the market really start pulling back if we don't have lower interest rates, because the housing market's going to be frozen. We're getting a little bit higher on long rates as well. Mortgage rates are the highest in a long time. So you're going to see the Fed hint at that, probably saying, November, December, we're going to look to cut. And when they cut, when you see that, you're going to see, I think, small caps really take off here because they're already adjusted for the high interest rate environment. They already got annihilated. They're down tremendously compared to the rest of the markets. That's a massive underperformance. The Russell down over 6% for the year and the S&P 500 up nearly 1%. That's a massive discrepancy between large caps and small caps. It's been that way for a while, but a lot of these companies have adjusted. And for us, I'm not telling you to buy the Russell, but there's a lot of names within those spaces that we mentioned, especially oil, biotech, just even in infrastructure. A lot of companies, even that got nailed on tariffs, and now we're seeing that, alleviate a little bit. So a lot of names that we're seeing with this big disconnects, I think you can make a lot of money, but you got to be smart. You got to be careful, and you got to know the management teams, make sure they have growth, make sure they have pricing power. And you saw that with a couple of names even report, like Abercrombie and Fitch and stuff like that. It is interesting, but I was just surprised to see that the Russell's down that much compared to the S&P 500, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
you're correct on early next year. We'll at least get the hints of much lower rates coming, because remember, Fed Chair Powell will be gone next May-ish, give or take. The new Fed chair will be appointed after May, if you look at the intranet or AI searches. But the point is that you're going to start talking about names are going to get floated around, who's possibly going to be the next chair. That'll all happen months before that. So I think that timeline works perfectly as to end of this year. And make assured, even though everybody's so independent and the left hand doesn't talk to the right Fed, how much do you want to bet that the new Fed chair cuts rates?
It's a good catalyst.
These guys are independent, and we don't know, Frank. We'll just have to wait and see.
It's a good thing you mentioned that, because we're not talking about something long term. We're talking about the Fed chair is going to be replaced in May. right? So a year from now, that's when they're going to do it. We're going to see the next person that comes in is going to lower rates. It's going to be a Trump guy, right? So he's going to do whatever Trump says, likely. Again, whether you hate that doesn't matter, right? You're looking at the markets and how it's going to impact them. And lower rates are going to be very good for the markets because it's going to lower our deficits. That's the only way to really get out of our deficits. When we see economic growth, which happens when we have lower rates, we see the housing market, start to kick in a little bit more because it's been a real drag, especially with home builders and stuff like that, a lot of stocks. But yeah, it is going to be a big catalyst going into next year. And not only that, less regulation. Banks are going to be able to lend out more of their money, less on the balance sheets because they're sitting on these massive cash hoards. There's a lot of positives coming up over the next, 12 months and even 9 to 12 months in anticipation of these events that would be very good. And we're not even talking about signing deals with tariffs and things like that. But with interest rates high, that puts a dent in everything. And Trump knows that. Whatever he's doing, it doesn't matter. If interest rates continue to go higher, it doesn't matter what he tries to do with Doge or whatever, which, again, with his new spending bill plan and stuff like that, it kind of, defeats the purpose. Even Elon Musk called him out on that and said, kind of defeats the purpose of that crazy spending bill because a lot of shit had to be done to get that passed. And a lot of people complaining about that. That's why you're seeing rates go a little bit higher, but also you're seeing gold come back a little bit after a little bit of a pullback. And then we have Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's still maintaining pretty close to its all-time high. Was it 107, 108 last time I looked? I always say that because I can look 5 minutes from now. It could be 90,000 or it could be 120,000. But the Bitcoin conference, big news, right? 2025 Bitcoin conference in Vegas now. I have a lot of friends are there and people. Daniel was going to go.
Oh, bring that up.
And then canceled. Frank. It's his fault, not my fault. I gave him the green light.
It's a good thing your name's on the door. I'll wait for tomorrow's podcast.
It's good. Hey, I gave him the green light and he said, I can't do it. So that's that Daniel. He couldn't do it. But anyway, I'm going to tell you, Daniel, I'm going to be honest with you. Listen, there's 30,000. They say they're anticipating 30,000 attendees. I don't know because I saw numbers from 15,000 to 30, 5,000 attending companies. To put that in perspective, the biggest conference, I think, in the world is a consumer electronics show. It's one of them, at least. And they have 3,500 companies. We're looking at 5,000. You have over 400 speakers there. I'm kind of glad you didn't go because, and I don't know why anyone would pay for this event now. It's kind of like the IRSON conference. I used to go every year. It was 5,000. Also, the Value Investing Congress I used to go to. That conference was amazing. But now they stream everything for free. Every platform has this streaming for free. And I got to tell you, so far, it's been pretty overwhelming for a lot of regulars there because there's so much regulation. I know that was day one. I think they have 5 different stages going off at the same time, but it's not too exciting. I'm hearing it's not too exciting going there. Oh my God, there's so many people in this, but it's so overwhelming sometimes. It's kind of like the Consumer Electronics Show. When I bring people there for the first time, and I kind of hate when people go with me because I like to do my own thing and research companies all the time. And I was like, I'm going to go with you. I'm like, don't go with me. This isn't an altcoin conference. This isn't anyone talk about anything else other than Bitcoin. And it's just like a massive amount of Bitcoin on top of you where it's not necessarily you're going to get new ideas. But, with that said, a lot of big names speaking at the conference, and it's getting a lot of attention.
I got a couple of things I want to talk about with the Bitcoin conference. So yesterday was institutional day. That is going to be more of a boring day if you're going to look at it from that realm. But quickly, Frank, why would you go in person? You know this. It's to connect, meet people, and have fun in Vegas and wherever the events held. That's why you would go. It is an all Bitcoin conference, I understand. However, the first day was institutional day. You had a lot of politicians, a lot of political speeches, a lot of people running for the next office, and they're up there touting it. And some of that is kind of funny. You could tell it was boring with the crowd because a lot of the politicians there were just, I get what they're trying to do. I just don't think they are telling the message correctly, Frank, because we've been joking about this and we've been dead right on this. Bitcoin needed to get into the political world. They did that. They outraised everybody. They're playing the political game and getting political power. Okay, that's good. A lot of those people in the Bitcoin only conference still don't like that. So they don't like that partnership. You just have to understand and deal with that. I get it that it's not the hoorah rah. So I understand that standpoint of a not exciting thing. But honestly, I streamed this to your point, Frank. I thought it was great. To your point, Strive. So Frank, if you would pull up a chart for me, I'm going to give you a ticker. And you'll know it's Bitcoin related because the chart will look ridiculous. ASST, please. So Strive is backed by, I'm going to butcher this, Frank, help me out, Vivek, his last name?
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Vivek. See how I read it.
Is this ASST as a symbol?
Yep.
Asset facility.
Yep. Should be. It was $14 yesterday. I think it's $7 today. Does that look about right? Crypto related.
Yeah, crypto related.
No, the point here is Strive just recently announced, and you're going to have some big announcements around Bitcoin. Obviously, that's good marketing and good management. But Strive announced this huge pipe funding deal, Frank, at like $1.30 something. We don't want to rant about that. The point is, they were talking about how they're just the next company to raise huge amounts of money, buy Bitcoin, use it as a Bitcoin treasury asset, and then The CEO talked more about their alpha strategies. And that's where I made the comment about the biotech, Frank. And real quickly here. So Strive, he was saying, the gentleman, the CEO, and it's not Vivek, it's Matt Cole, I believe. And he was saying, listen, every 15 years you get this wipeout in biotech. And Frank is the biotech guy, not me. But I was telling him, and I was listening to the Strive speech, this gentleman, and he said, Frank, in 2017, 2% of biotech companies were trading below cash. And Frank called me out on this in a good way. Just because you're trading below cash doesn't mean you're a buy, because you might have your cash burn rate might be so significant.
I mean, your market might be 50
it might
million.
Look like a crazy buy, but you might have money in 3 months.
You have 100 million in cash, meaning that the cash is worth more than the market cap of the company. But that company may be going to a phase 2 study, and they need to raise like $200 million, and over the next year they'll be bankrupt. So you have to be careful with biotech and look at the cash burn rate, because even though you could say, wow, this is definitely a buy, they're not in the business of just getting rid of their company and selling it with the asset. They want to basically turn this into $1 billion company. They have to spend money. And it does cost a lot of money for biotechs to really get those drugs through those approval stages. Yeah. Yeah.
The takeaway here from his perspective is, hey, we had 2% trading below cash value in 2017. Fast forward to today, 23%. Their point is, hey, and he gives this example, listen, if you have more cash on your balance sheet, they have to do their due diligence. He is saying Strive is in talks with a lot of companies to go in, buy them, use the cash difference to do what? Go buy Bitcoin and add it to the treasury. I'm not saying if that works. I'm simply saying when you have, this is just the evolution and the evolving of Bitcoin and crypto into the financial system, as Frank and I have talked about. This is genius, because I'm going to keep watching this stock, because these guys are not dumb people. All right.
These are asset entities, right?
And yeah, and it's combining with Strive Asset Management. So I don't know the timeline. I'm going through their presentation, and that's where I saw that chart. So I wouldn't touch it yet. The point is that just like with ETFs to buy Bitcoin, now you have ETFs that are branching into active management. And Frank's talked about this. This is only going to grow the ecosystem. And the point of all these companies, I'm not saying this is a go out and buy. I'm simply saying the rise of companies adding Bitcoin to the treasury, following strategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy, and putting real capital to work to do more deals and strategies are good for the ecosystem. And these things are going to be volatile just like crazy. So it gives you traders and investors another option to look at. I would definitely look at that. Frank, I don't know if you had any, did you catch anything on, did you hear any of the Strive or any of that?
Not any of that, but I'm looking at this stock. It's actually interesting, asset entities, because they're a social media marketing company mostly focusing on Discord. So, and that's important because Discord is massive when it comes to the younger generation. Okay, I know little about Discord. I do have a Discord account, but I know little about it. This is a company where, for us, it made sense because we hired someone in consultants for Twitter. We hired consultants to build up our YouTube channel now, and Twitter's working tremendously for us. YouTube is starting to work. We just begun that, hiring consultants, and these guys do it. But I'm looking at the revenue that they generated, because Discord's hard, right? They do educational service, entertainment, social media, marketing, all through Discord, which is something a lot of companies would do because it's a very big platform, especially for Bitcoin and crypto. But I'm looking at a company with over $100 million market cap. They generated $679,000 in revenue. I mean, you don't have one guy paying you $1 million to really build up the Discord account, because if you build it up to like 100,000, 50,000, I mean, the money that you would generate from that is incredible, which, we do a good job. It's the hardest job for us as a company is getting people to get people to know who Curzio Research is. So if you look at our social media platforms, we're getting a ton of new traffic. And there's my daughter say, do you see some of the comments on there? And everyone's like, oh, he's full of shit and he's that. And I'm like, that's good that you should think I'm full of shit because I'm new, right? We're getting a lot of new clients in. And what it does is open a door for a lot of people in social media channels to say, hey, you know what? Frank's not full of shit. He's been doing this for 30 years and, he really gives a shit, So I want that. Like, I think you should be skeptical going in, but having that service is amazing. I just can't believe that they're not really generating any revenue off of it, which is surprising, but I didn't hear about that stock.
Well, again, this is all new. I don't know a lot of the background. I just heard that, started looking at
it. It was 14 to 7, which is crazy. But I will tell you that a couple things. One, the speakers there are incredible. If you think like Bitcoin's this fad still and it's going to zero, even what's his name is there?
Vice President?
Peter Schiff.
Oh.
Peter Schiff is there, right? He has his own booth. And credit to him because he's an amazing marketer, right? And it'll look like everyone hates him, but he has over 1 million followers. Good for him. I got to give him credit with that. With marketing-wise, it's fantastic. He's unbelievable. But you have A16Z, the crypto, which is Anderson Horowitz. You have BlackRock there. You have President Trump's his campaign manager, Vice President Vance just spoke. First time a VP of the U.S. Will do a keynote at a Bitcoin event. You have U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis, who says, who's want to buy millions and millions of Bitcoin for the strategic reserve. Vivek Ramaswamy, Byron Daniels. I mean, these are David Sachs, the United States Department of Treasury, and Tyler Williams is going to be it. Then you have like your normal guys like Robinhood, Galaxy, Coinbase, Michael Saylor, eToro, Kraken. So you have all these speakers there. It's a massive event, and institutions are totally engulfed in this now that you have regulation around it, and that's definitely coming with the new SC chair. It's here. It's amazing. Some of the comments, like just a few here. The Steak and Shake CEO, Sundar Biglari's massive, he's a billionaire. He said they reduced payments fees by 50% through adoption of Bitcoin. And also Bitcoin, he said, is faster than credit cards, and expressed that it experienced positive effects in terms of efficiency and cost. That has always been the case with a lot of these crypto payment companies. That's why the banks were lobbying to shut this off through the Biden administration. Why we had Operation Choke Point 2, where they just shut down crypto. They illegally closed the banks and said, no one go near those banks. If anyone goes near them and has any crypto holdings in them, we're going to audit you. It's basically shutting off their growth engine, and they were forced to liquidate, right? It wasn't that they did anything illegal, these banks. So now that you have all this coming through, we're just scratching the surface on what Bitcoin could actually do in terms of payments, in terms of all these payment services, in terms of the altcoins. So one thing I would say is what we're doing with our newsletter is you have to focus on, if you really believe Bitcoin's going higher, and it is. We said it's going to 100,000. It's going to go to 250,000. It could take 3 years to do that. It could take 4 years, but it's going to continue to go higher because there's no supply. Right? There's no extra supply, and you have this massive demand from institutions, 401ks, from countries adopting Bitcoin and have their own strategic reserves. It's going to continue to go higher. It's just the dynamics of it make it that it's going to go much higher, right? Just a supply, demand, and balance. When that happens, the altcoins, the next 100 you want to really look at, and you're starting to see those move finally. I thought they move a lot quicker, but they didn't. There's a lot of names that are going to benefit tremendously through these payment services. Now that you have regulatory framework around it, now they can be more aggressive. And you're really going to see that, whether it's Solana, XRP, and a lot of those names. I'm even talking about some of these other names that you probably haven't heard of that have billion-dollar market caps that look very attractive here. But, as far as the Bitcoin conference goes, I don't know if you necessarily, outside of networking, that you want to be there. You could watch and stream a lot of this stuff. It is amazing. I mean, I had a lot of people that are meeting with Trump. Trump's son's going to be there, and they have meetings and stuff like that I wanted to try to get into, and I'll probably attend next year, but it's pretty cool. You got another 2 days. Hopefully we see some more information. I will say this, almost every time that they have this conference, Bitcoin sells off sharply because you have all this positive news leading up, and then Bitcoin, I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin breaks below 100,000 on this, which is, again, a 10% pullback from its all-time highs, really, maybe a little bit more than that. You'll probably see a little bit of pullback. You're seeing that today. A lot of Bitcoin companies are pulling back because it's almost like a sell event type of thing, right? It's like buying the news. Holy shit, Vice President Vance is going to be there. Trump, oh my God, all these people. It's going to be a massive conference, and everyone's paying $5,000 a ticket. It's huge, 5,000 companies, whatever it is, 500 companies. Of 5,000 companies, but you're going to see this sell a news event, I think, over the next couple of weeks until we get, the next wave of positive announcements on this, which are going to continue to happen for years and years now that you have the right regulatory framework, and that's what Michael Novogratz said. But, if you look at the trade Bitcoin, I think it comes down on this news. It's just a sell event news, and everyone's happy and everyone is going crazy, but you might, if you're looking to buy Bitcoin, you probably get a good opportunity to buy it, probably about 10% lower, I had to guess, over the next couple of days or so. If I had, again, that's just a call. I've seen it all the time. I've been covering this thing since 2016. Been in this for a long time, since 6,000. We have it in our portfolio. We have Ethereum in the portfolio, like 160, 180, or whatever. So, we've been following these trends for a very long time. We see stuff like this, but I wouldn't be surprised we see further pullback from the conference.
One thing I want to talk about. So legislation, I'll end on this, Frank. I know legislation doesn't sound exciting, but David Sachs, who you mentioned, was on stage with the Winklevoss twins. And it was a great talk because it's very easy to look back. I want to be a forgive and forget type person, but that takes time. And what I mean by that is, Frank, the paradigm shift between the last administration and this administration couldn't be more night and day. And there's a tendency to say, hey, that's in the past, let's just move forward. But you can't completely forget about that. Now, I take that a step further. I think a lot of people should be punished and thrown in jail and bankrupted and all that. That's for a different time. The Winklevoss twins said they were debanked down to their last transfer bank account option, and they almost got killed. They were down to their last string and got put out of business. That is crazy to think about. Those guys, unlimited capital, essentially, billionaires, they're not going to waste all their fortune. But when you put that into perspective and think about what's happening, and then the big fear is, hey, can it happen again? Yes, without legislation. So I'll end on this. The big reoccurring theme of day one was even politicians and the diehards were saying, hey, we have got to get this legislation passed. David Sachs on the Crypto Czar and all that was talking about all the different bills. Frank and I have talked about those a little bit. They have to get passed because if they don't get it passed, the next administration can just put another Gary Gensler in there and undo everything. So while I know there's a lot of people that can't stand the government, I agree with you. You have to have legislation go through. And in my opinion, that's the next big leg higher. We'll see how it all plans out. But there was a lot of great talk in there. So make sure you stream it and cut through. That's great.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to Nvidia's reporting after the bell. Dan Ives was on CNBC earlier. I like Dan Ives. And he was saying how we're in the second inning of the AI megatrend. I agree with that. If we're even in the second inning, I don't think people realize how big this is going to be. As big as your forecast is, times that by 10. It's just incredible, the productivity gains, and we've talked about this numerous times. But he also said a few things. He also said that Palantir talk about, part of the AI trend. He said it's going to be $1 trillion market cap company. The stock's $120 a share. We've been telling you to buy it since 20. A lot of people have been looking at valuations. I'm like, they're valuing it wrong because of the way I value Netflix and got that wrong. And so you got to look at like the total addressable market's probably about 5x to 7x bigger than what everyone's analyzing for, right? And modeling for. So the stock's now over $120 a share. If he's right, it's $1 trillion company. It's something we said too. Palantir would be $400 a share. And he just said every single thing that happens within AI, Palantir's there. They're the company that everyone goes to. And that's the thing. They can come into any major company and make AI work like on day one, which is insane, right? And nobody could do that. And that's when you look at CoreWeave. Nobody could provide NVIDIA's top chips, Blackwell, at scale. Right. So when you have companies that are providing something for hyperscalers who have literally are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this trend, hundreds of billions annually, right? And just going to continue to spend this for many years going forward. When you cater to them, you're going to see your profits explode. You're going to see your margins explode. You're going to see everything explode. And that's what you want to buy, like the top tier companies within this, even though they're going to be super expensive. You have to look at their total addressable market because it gets bigger and bigger, and then they don't look like that expensive. Because if you look at a Palantir and say it's trading at 200 times sales, it's insane. It was trading at 40 times sales, 50 times sales, 70 times sales at 20, 30, 50, and now it's 120, okay? So I get it, but you're just looking at the wrong metrics. And take it from me, I'm not saying it because I'm a freaking genius, because I'm not. I'm just telling you that because I've made that mistake in the past. Now, when you're looking at Nvidia and getting back to them, if you look at all the data centers, Daniel, today, they're all powered by the H100, H200 chips, and they're already outdated. I'm not saying they're outdated to the point where they're not working. They're fine, right? But you already have I don't know if I'd call it a replacement cycle because I don't know if they're going to go in and replace those, but everyone's dying to get their new Blackwell chip, right? It's massive demand and they don't have enough supply. And it's basically the only chip in the world that matters. They have no competition. I mean, people are competing against the H100 and then they came out with the H200 and now the Blackwells. I mean, you look at AMD and everybody, they're light years behind. They can provide things for AI and that's great and say they're an AI company. But if you want the best and the greatest in the world, this is what you have to do. If you don't buy them as a hyperscaler, you're behind light years. You can't buy AMD chips. If you're Microsoft, try to compete with, the Oracles and the Amazons who have the Blackwell chip. You just can't. Your systems aren't going to be as fast as that, and your AI systems. Now, they're reporting after the bell today. You have Jensen Huang's going on Kramer after the show, which is, after the bell where he reports. I don't think that Jensen Huang would do that unless the numbers are going to be great. However,
is that your tell?
Yeah, it's pretty much you don't make arrangements to go on a show afterwards if you're going to blow the numbers and they're going to be horrible, right? It's pretty obvious. I've been doing this for a long time and seen, been part of Kramer and stuff like that and seen the CEOs. You don't have CEOs dying to be on a show and go after they report if the numbers are freaking horrible, right? However, Nvidia reported great earnings last quarter and the stock crashed. And it fell more than 25% under 100, which we said, listen, buy the dip, aggressively buy the dip, and the stock's 135 right now. You're looking at the quarter, Daniel, China's going to be a headwind, of course, but when you're looking at the numbers, China is a very small part of overall revenue. It's kind of like a $3 billion headwind for the company. And you're like, holy shit, $3 billion. That's a lot of money for 99.999% of companies, but not for Nvidia and not for Apple, not the hyperscalers, because, to put in perspective, just this quarter, they're expected to generate $43 billion in sales for the quarter. And if you look at Middle East, which just opened up a brand new opportunity, even Dan Ives came in and said, look, this could be a $500 billion to $1 trillion long-term opportunity for them. So you're going to see constantly with the tariffs and the deals that they're going to sign, they're going to bring this roadshow, all those 10, 12 CEOs, the Boeings, the IBMs, the Nvidias, all these guys are going to be, just traveling country to country and say, hey, Trump's going to point to these 12 guys, say these are the greatest guys in the world, the greatest companies in the world. You have access to all their technology if you sign a deal with us with tariffs. And that's what's going to happen. So you're going to see more markets open up. I think today Nvidia beats the numbers. They raise guidance. I can't see Nvidia not reporting a blowout quarter. It's just a matter if this is already priced into the stock because shares are up 20% for the month. If you do see these blowout numbers and they offer strong guidance and the stock falls, one thing to take a look at is margins. That's what hurt the stock last quarter, but that should have been priced in. Jensen Huang said the quarter before, listen, margins are going to be a little weak right now, but they're going to come back towards the second half of the year. Let's see if that's true. He has to come out. If they didn't come out this quarter, he should say towards the second half of the year, he should raise those margin requirements wherever they are at 70%, because they fell short last quarter. If you do see a significant pullback and they have strong numbers, it's going to give you the opportunity. If you own it, don't be pissed. You're fine. It's going to give you the opportunity to buy the stock again. We trade it numerous times for our portfolio with our Dollar Stock Club portfolio, which is attached to Wall Street Unplugged Premium. But I think you're going to get a blowout quarter from Nvidia. Otherwise, Jensen Huang would not be, on Cramer's show. I hope I'm wrong on this. I really do. I hope I come on tomorrow, Wall Street Club Premium, and the stock's down 15% and they lowered guidance and shit like that. And I'm going to be like, dude, what's this guy doing going on Kramer? Like, you didn't have to go on Cramer's show.
He's
now.
on Cramer because Cramer's begged him for months. Frank,
we'll
when it comes to this, numbers don't matter. I will take the under, though, because CNBC did the goofiest thing. I can't stand it. When you're watching sports and they try to jinx people, like a guy goes to the foul line of basketball and they put up the stat and says, hey, I was missed a foul shot in Florida 3 games. And the guy bricks it right off the end. So CNBC's silly trivia question today was, how many consecutive quarters has Nvidia beat expectations when it comes to earnings, Frank?
I don't know.
And of course, the play here is you're going to guess some crazy high number because, Nvidia is the greatest company in the world. And it was 8. That was the answer. 8 quarters, 2 years. And of course, everybody's like, oh, I can't believe that. They're so amazing. Why not? They don't matter. It's all about guidance. So I'll take the under just because of having fun with CNBC. Frank, let's just have fun here. Nothing has changed. You hit it exactly right. It's a buy on the pullback because if something significantly changed tonight on their comments from 2.5 weeks ago, that's a big problem to worry about. I just don't see how that happens.
No, and look, the stock's up tremendously. You got to pay attention to that because even if the numbers are good, you're like, the numbers are good. How come the stock came down? Well, it was under 100 a couple of months ago, and it's up 20% since, May 1st, basically. So, this month. So it's up a lot leading into these expectations are very high. Maybe they meet them. Maybe it goes to a new high, which is in the 150s. But Nvidia is part of the greatest trend that we may have ever seen in technology. You could argue that, and I would argue that. It's a trend that's going to be around for decades, and they are light years ahead of everyone else. And the biggest companies in the world that have the hundreds of billions of dollars, in the balance sheets need their product. So you're looking at a company that could become the largest company in the world based on market cap. It absolutely could. We could see that and continue for many years if they keep this up because they're just light years ahead. You got to credit Jensen Huang for partnering, right? Not saying, hey, we're keeping these chips to ourselves. They're like, okay, we're not just going to be a hardware company, we're going to be a software company. And I want to go to the CEO of every single major company, a Fortune 500 company that buys our chips and create personalized systems for them and wrap it around these systems. This is 10 years in the making. This isn't just like, hey, we just came up with this idea. This isn't CoreWeave a couple of years ago. I mean, he foreseen this. He was just like, this is what we need to do. We need to partner with all these guys. It's the reason why all the biggest companies in the world get on stage with him. And I've been to his conference, the Consumer Electronics Show, where he headlined it. And again, I had to cut the line in order to get in this freaking conference because whatever it held, 15,000 people, there was probably 45,000 people there. The companies that they deal with and how they have partnerships with, and there's not anyone that they partner with that does not love NVIDIA. I mean, they love working with them. It's so big when it comes to business when you have great partners in business that help you out. And what they've done, there's just no competition. They don't even talk about the competition. It's not like Verizon's talking about AT&T and how we're beating them and software companies and Salesforce talking about, Copilot sucks and shit like that. They don't even mention the competition because there is no competition for them. So it's crazy. I don't know what the stock's going to do today when they report, but just if it pulls back, guys, just buy it because it's probably going to a lot higher and it's not an expensive company anymore. It's just the way this company is growing revenue, earnings, it's not an expensive company, probably based on growth, the cheapest company out of the top 10 biggest technology companies in the world. This is probably the cheapest, even more cheaper than Google, again, based on growth and how fast this company is growing.